My name is Elizabeth Smith. I'm 30 years old, and sometimes I catch myself thinking that I've lived much longer than that. Since I can remember, my life has always revolved around one thing: my mother's company, Smith Interiors, here in charming Norcross, Georgia. While other kids ran through the streets, playing tag or dreaming of distant futures, I spent my days surrounded by furniture catalogs, fabric samples, and huge clipboards scattered across the office floor. My childhood was spent between busy meetings and frantic phone calls. I remember sitting on the beige carpet of the conference room with a notepad in hand, listening to my mother solve crises as if she were playing a simple board game. "Elizabeth, never underestimate the power of listening," she would say, pacing back and forth. "The client will tell you exactly what they need, if you pay attention." I absorbed everything in silence, recording every word, every gesture. It was as if, from a young age, I knew. My life was intrinsically tied to that company. When I turned 18, the moment to decide my future arrived like a storm. While my friends were flipping through catalogs of universities in Boston, New York, and even Paris, I had another idea in mind. "Liz, you're so talented," said Amelia, my best friend, during a lazy afternoon at the corner cafe. "You could study anywhere in the world. Imagine, Harvard, NYU." I smiled, slowly stirring my coffee with a spoon, letting the strong scent envelop me. "I already know where I belong," I replied, looking out the window where the trees swayed lazily in the wind. "Smith Interiors needs me, and I need it." Amelia furrowed her brow, as if trying to understand a foreign language. "But you deserve more, Liz. You deserve to live. To really live. To really live." Those words echoed in my mind many times in the years that followed. But at that time, I had no doubts. My life was there, in that brick building on Main Street in Norcross. I threw myself into the work. I spent days and nights studying the interior design market, analyzing trends, reading about corporate negotiations. While my friends posted pictures of backpacking trips across Europe, of parties in college dorms, of vacations on far-off beaches, I posted pictures of mood boards, electronic models, and approved projects. Working at Smith Interiors wasn't easy. There were days when clients yelled at me for delays that weren't my fault. Nights when unattainable deadlines kept me awake until the sun rose, finishing presentations and reviewing contracts line by line. But, for me, every challenge was just another proof that I deserved to be there. I remembered my mother's voice, as firm as a rock. "Liz, success isn't for those who wait, it's for those who build." And I built, brick by brick. Each difficult client I won over, each contract I saved, each project I delivered beyond expectations, everything was part of the plan I quietly kept in my heart. I did everything for Smith Interiors. There were times I had to put out fires that weren't even caused by me. There were times I put aside birthdays, holidays, and even relationships to prioritize the company. Once, I remember finalizing a multi-million-dollar project for a luxury hotel in Atlanta. The deadline was ridiculously tight, and the team was on the verge of collapse. That night, I called my mother, exhausted, just wanting to hear some words of support. "Mom, I don't know if I can do this," I confessed, my voice breaking. She was silent for a few seconds before replying coldly, "If you can't, Liz, someone else will." That hurt, but it also set me on fire. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and returned to the project with a nearly cruel determination. On the day of delivery, the client not only approved the work but recommended us for 3 more contracts. It was always like this. Love and approval in my relationship with Smith Interiors came in the form of achievements, never words. And even with all the harshness, even with the constant exhaustion, I kept alive the secret hope that one day my mother would look at me and say, "Liz, you're my successor. You're the new owner." That image was what made me get out of bed on the toughest days. It was that dream that made me smile when I finished an impossible project. I never said it out loud. Never. It was like a silent prayer, a request made only to the universe. And the signs were there. My mother was already talking about retirement openly in team meetings. She mentioned passing the baton and letting the new generation flourish. I saw the looks of admiration from colleagues. I heard whispers in the halls. Liz is the one holding this company together. When Carol retires, we already know who will take over. It all seemed so clear, so inevitable. I could even imagine the transition ceremony, my mother symbolically handing me the keys to the company, the applause from colleagues, the pride in her eyes. But as in all good stories, sometimes fate holds surprises that even the most careful of planners cannot foresee. And what I didn't know, what I could never have imagined, not even in my worst nightmares, was that business dinner, which seemed like a celebration, would actually be the beginning of the end of everything I loved most. A revelation that would break my heart in two. The banquet hall table looked like something out of a corporate fairy tale. Snow-white porcelain, the finest crystal glasses sparkling under the golden light of antique chandeliers, silver cutlery polished to shine like mirrors. The scent of French wine lingered in the air, mixed with the subtle fragrance of fresh flowers arranged in meticulous bouquets. It was the perfect night. The night I had waited for almost half my life. Around the long table sat everyone: directors, managers, project leaders, men and women who knew my journey, who had seen every drop of sweat I had shed for that company. They toasted excitedly, wide smiles on their faces, as if everyone shared the same secret, a secret that, I thought, was my well-deserved appointment. My heart beat so loudly that I could hear it thumping in my ears. I took a deep breath and sat next to my mother, feeling her classic jasmine scent envelop me. She flashed me a brief smile, the kind of smile that seemed to promise something. Tonight. Finally, tonight. The conversation around the table slowed as my mother stood up, holding the wine glass as if it were a scepter of power. She cleared her throat delicately and smiled at everyone with that confident, charismatic, matriarchal air I had always admired and feared. I straightened in my chair, my heart in my throat. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her firm voice echoing through the hall. "This night is special." She paused strategically, and I felt my fingers involuntarily tighten around the edge of the table. "As you all know, I am preparing to take an important step: retirement." Complicit smiles appeared among the guests. Some threw me discreet, eager glances, and I felt the heat of expectation rise up my skin. This was it. It was my time. My mother continued, her eyes shining with emotion. "It is time to pass the leadership of Smith Interiors to the next generation, and it is with great pleasure that I present the new president of Smith Interiors." A second of absolute silence. I was already leaning forward, almost getting up. "My youngest daughter, Pamela." Applause erupted in the room like fireworks. Glasses clinked. Shouts of approval echoed off the marble walls. But to me, the world stopped. I stood there, frozen, feeling as if the ground beneath my feet had disappeared. "Pamela? Pamela." I blinked, thinking I had misheard. I looked at her, my younger sister, Pamela, who was now rising with a radiant smile, waving as if she had just won a trophy in a beauty pageant. The same Pamela who spent afternoons traveling to resorts in Miami, posting pictures of mimosas and beaches on Instagram. The same Pamela who, when questioned about financial reports, scrunched her nose as if we were speaking Greek. I looked at my mother, searching for some explanation, some sign that this was just a poorly planned joke. But she avoided my gaze. She didn't dare to look me in the eye. It was as if I had become invisible, as if every sleepless night, every contract saved, every effort to keep that company alive had been erased with a single snap of the fingers. I heard Pamela laugh and say to the financial manager, "Guys, it's official now. We're going to make this company more cool. I'm going to transform everything. You'll love it." Cool? Transform? I felt my stomach churn in violent waves. My face burned, not from embarrassment, but from a silent, deafening, throbbing anger. I tried to maintain composure while the guests toasted, while Pamela spun around the room receiving hugs and congratulations as if she were the star of a major film. "Breathe, Elizabeth. Breathe," I thought, clutching my glass as if it were an anchor in the middle of a storm. "Liz?" whispered one of the veteran managers, leaning toward me with eyes full of pity. I I thought it would be you. I forced a painful smile. So did I replied, my voice hoarse, almost unrecognizable. The night went by in a blur. Every congratulations to Pamela sounded like a slap in my face. Every smile directed at her was a brutal reminder that, to my mother, I was never enough. No matter how much I tried, no matter how much I sacrificed. As the party continued, as toasts and laughter filled the room, a decision formed inside me, cold and crystal clear. I would no longer stay there. I would no longer be in Pamela's shadow. I wouldn't be the second choice. Without making a scene, without shedding a tear, I decided that night I would leave Smith Interiors. I would take everything I had learned, every contact, every bit of knowledge, and build something of my own. Something no one could take from me. Something that would make the entire town, and perhaps the world, see who Elizabeth Smith truly was. But what I didn't know was that this decision would bring consequences I could never have imagined. And that for every step I took toward freedom, a new obstacle would appear in my path, testing not just my courage, but the very strength of my soul. The next morning, I put on my best outfit, a navy blazer that symbolized to me confidence and respect, and walked into the Smith Interiors office with my head held high, even though my heart was in pieces. Each step I took down the carpeted hallway seemed to echo the story of the years I was leaving behind. As I entered the main office, the scene I found was almost surreal. Pamela, sitting in the president's chair, my chair as I still dared to think, was awkwardly trying to lead the team. "Okay, guys," she said, stammering and nervously shuffling through papers on the desk. "We're going to, restructure the whole, marketing part? And maybe product design? I know it's going to be, amazing." I saw the exchanged glances among the directors. I saw the confusion clearly written on their faces. Pamela barely knew how to use basic terms in the field. She confused briefing with branding, called cash flow incoming cash flow, and said that clients needed more glitter in the designs, as if we were decorating children's parties instead of luxury homes. Every word she said was a blow to my dignity. I swallowed the lump in my throat, took a deep breath, and walked toward my mother's office. I knocked on the glass door with a sharp tap. "Come in," I heard her voice. I opened the door. She was sitting behind the desk surrounded by papers and reports, many of them with numbers that soon would no longer make sense. She smiled when she saw me, a hesitant, almost guilty smile. "Elizabeth," she said, straightening up. "I'm glad you're here. We need to talk about your new projects with Pamela." I calmly interrupted, but with the firmness of someone who knew it was now or never. "Mom," I started, and my voice didn't tremble, even though everything inside me screamed for weakness. "I'm resigning." She blinked, confused as if she hadn't understood. "Resigning? But you're essential, Elizabeth," she murmured, a subtle desperation beginning to show in her eyes. "Not anymore," I replied, standing up and smoothing the hem of my blazer. "I was essential, before you made me invisible." She opened her mouth to say something, but no sound came out. She just stared at me, perhaps for the first time in years, truly seeing me. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out, leaving behind everything I had once dreamed of, and everything that had kept me from dreaming bigger. In the following days, I threw myself into work like never before. I took advantage of every contact built through years of sweat. Clients called, asking where I had gone. Partners sent messages, offering support. This is how Elizabeth & Comer Designs was born. At first, it was just me, an assistant who trusted me, and a small rented office in downtown Norcross. But passion and competence are seeds that grow quickly. In less than 3 months, we were signing contracts with major clients in Atlanta and all over Gwinnett County. $1 million projects, luxury homes, commercial developments. Elizabeth & Comer Designs grew like wildfire. Meanwhile, rumors about Smith Interiors started reaching me, like a cold wind sweeping through a room before a storm. Pamela, trying to innovate, had transformed the company's aesthetic signature, once elegant, minimalist, and sophisticated, into something chaotic and garish. One example? In a project for a traditional family in Peachtree Corners, she ordered neon curtains to be installed in a classic 1800s salon. The client, horrified, canceled the contract and spread their outrage through the local high society. Another fatal mistake? She cut costs on renowned suppliers to hire cheap companies, which delivered defective furniture and poorly made finishes. Within months, clients began suing Smith Interiors for breach of contract. And the worst of all? Pamela created a modernization promotion for corporate offices, but forgot to include clauses in the contract. Result: Smith Interiors spent over $200,000 on a project that the client refused to pay in full. It was disaster after disaster. The older employees, those who had carried the company on their shoulders, began resigning en masse. Loyal clients pulled away, disappointed. The reputation, the one I had helped build over the years, was crumbling before my eyes like a house of cards hit by a treacherous breeze. And me? I watched it all from afar, torn between sadness and the inevitable feeling of poetic justice. But still, I couldn't predict what would come next. I never expected that my mother, that strong, proud woman who seemed unshakable, would come looking for me. In that way. Desperate, fragile, almost unrecognizable. And with that, a new decision, the hardest of my life, began to form in my heart. The storm brewing outside seemed to mirror the unease within me. The sky over Norcross was covered with gray clouds, and the rain tapped against the windows of my new office, now spacious and elegant, a symbol of how much I had grown away from the shadow of Smith Interiors. It was then that the phone rang. The number flashed on the screen, and for a moment I thought about not answering. But something, perhaps the remnants of a daughter who in some way still loved her mother, made me swipe my finger across the screen. Hello? My voice came out cold, cautious. On the other side, I heard the sound of a stifled sob, followed by the trembling voice I knew so well. Elizabeth, my mother said through tears. I need you, please. The company, it's sinking without you. We have no chance left. I don't know what to do. I stayed silent, staring at the fogged glass from the rain. Her words echoed in my mind like a cry for help, but also like a late recognition of everything I had always known. Without me, Smith Interiors would never survive. I thought of every night I spent working, every project I saved, every sacrifice I made. And I also thought of the night she betrayed me, handing my dream into the clumsy hands of Pamela. I felt a bitter mix of justice and sadness. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and found my answer. This time, it would be different. This time, it would be on my terms. I'll come back, I said, with the calm of someone who had learned to harden without losing their grace. But with clear conditions. There was a tense silence. On the other end of the line, I could almost hear the sound of her tears falling. I continued, my voice firm. Full control of the company. I want 70% of the shares in my name. And Pamela, out of the board, out of any decision-making position. The silence stretched like an open wound. For a moment I thought she would refuse, that her pride would still be greater than her love or her desperation. But then, in a broken whisper, she replied, All right. Her voice barely a whisper. All right, Elizabeth. It was the first time I heard her surrender. I hung up the phone with trembling hands, not from doubt, but because of the immense weight that decision carried. I was going back. But something inside me knew that nothing would be the same as before. Days later, the farewell meeting was scheduled. The main hall of Smith Interiors, the same place where I once dreamed of receiving the keys to my destiny, now felt small, almost oppressive, with the heavy curtains closing like a funeral. Pamela was there, pale and downcast. She avoided my eyes with the same skill of someone avoiding their own reflection in the mirror. When the inevitable moment came, she stood up, trembling, and walked to the center of the room. Her voice was weak, wavering. She began, swallowing her sobs. I thought I could do this. I thought it would be easy. That I just had to give orders and smile for the photos. But I don't know how to run a company. I never did. She looked around, seeking support, but only found closed faces and hard stares. Finally, she turned to me. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, she said, tears streaming down her face. The businesswoman life isn't for me. I'm leaving. I'll try to be happy in another way. With her head lowered, Pamela left the room. The next day, I learned that she and her husband had moved to Texas, seeking a new life away from the wreckage she left behind. And I, for the first time, took command of Smith Interiors, now practically reborn as an extension of my vision, my discipline, my passion. I gathered the remaining team, hired new talents, and rebuilt our image piece by piece, like someone restoring a broken stained glass window, making sure every detail shone brighter than before. The accounts started growing again. The contracts returned. Trust was slowly restored. But even amid the victories, a shadow loomed over me, because even after winning, even after proving to everyone, and most importantly to myself, that I was capable, the hardest decision was still waiting for me. A dilemma that no success could silence. Stay here, or move on for good. Cut, once and for all, the ties that still bound me to a family that, deep down, had never seen my true worth. And in the depth of my heart, I already knew that my answer would not be easy, nor painless. But it would come. And when it came, it would change my life forever. Taking over the company was the easiest part. Organizing finances, winning back clients, inspiring the team, these were things I could do with my eyes closed. After all, it was what I had always done, even when no one gave me the credit I deserved. The hard part was dealing with the invisible scars that dinner had left behind. My mother, who once was the driving force behind Smith Interiors, now walked the halls like a silent shadow. The high heels that once echoed like a hymn of power were replaced by dragging, fragile steps. Sometimes I would see her standing in the hallway, staring at an old picture of the projects we did together. Her eyes, once hard and critical, now carried a weight that no spreadsheet could measure. One afternoon, while reviewing contracts in my office, she knocked on the door, hesitating. "Elizabeth," she called, her voice low. "Do you have a minute?" I looked at her over my glasses, cold, distant. Every word had to be carefully chosen so that I wouldn't overflow with the silent pain that still bled within me. "Of course, come in," I replied, closing the folder in front of me. She sat down in the chair across from me, her gaze lost somewhere between the present and the guilt. "I just wanted to say, thank you," she said, the words sounding strange in her mouth. "You're welcome," I answered, emotionless. She hesitated, as if she wanted to say more, apologize, or maybe even beg to be my mother again, and not just a faded figure in the hierarchy I now commanded. But she said nothing, and in silence she stood up and left. As for me, I was stronger now. I knew how to save what still had value, and I had learned, the bitter way, that not everything we love deserves to be rescued. But deep down, something in me had broken that fateful night of the dinner. Something that no amount of success could fix. It was like an invisible crack in the glass. From a distance, it seemed intact. Up close, it revealed the painful lines that crossed my soul. It didn't matter how many awards we won. It didn't matter how many magazine covers bore my name. What I lost that night was irreparable. Slowly, almost naturally, I began to distance myself from them. Conversations with my mother became brief, strictly professional. And with Pamela? Well, with Pamela, not even a message. Time passed. Elizabeth & Coward Designs flourished beyond my expectations. Projects in Atlanta, partnerships across Gwinnett County, new offices, new dreams. Meanwhile, the old Smith Interiors was also breathing again. Under a new name, of course. Smith by Elizabeth. It wasn't just a change of facade. It was a rebirth. A symbol that the company would only survive if it was rebuilt on my own terms. I remember the opening of the new showroom. All of Norcross was there. Business people, old clients, new design talents. The lights reflected off the windows, and outside, the line stretched down the street. My name, shining in golden letters, finally occupied the space that should have been mine from the start. During the cocktail event, an old client from the days of Smith Interiors approached me, holding a champagne glass. "Elizabeth," he said, smiling, "it was never the company. It was always you. Those words, simple and sincere, echoed in my chest. That night, alone in the new office, I took off my shoes, walked barefoot on the wooden floor, and looked out the huge window that overlooked the city. I saw all of Norcross lit up, a living tapestry of the life I had helped build. And for the first time, I felt something different from pride or sadness. I felt peace. I understood right there, in the comfortable silence of my victory, that I never needed anyone to choose me. I never needed pats on the back nor late validations. I was enough. I always was. The decision I carried as a wound, cutting ties, going alone, turned out, in the end, to be my greatest strength. No, I didn't need to be the favored daughter. I didn't need to be the chosen one. I already was, and always have been, the only choice that mattered, my own. And that's how, between painful memories and quiet achievements, Elizabeth Smith finally found what no company, no title, no trophy could give. The certainty that starting over, even when it hurts, is sometimes the only way to be truly free.